Hello, I'm Heidi Mancherry. I'm one of the teachers of the deaf at SENSUccess, and this training is for children, for pupils with a hearing impairment, and it's the My Understanding of Deafness. It's aimed at primary age pupils, so probably towards the upper end of primary school, for anyone who's kind of ready to learn a bit more about what it means to have a hearing impairment. And in this first session, we're going to focus on the ear and some of the people that someone with hearing impairment might see. So in this first session, we're going to have a look at the ear and start to think about all the different parts that make up the ear, because it's not just the part that we see, it's lots more going on as well. So we're going to have a look at that. We're hopefully going to learn some of the names of these different parts. We're going to have a little think about what goes wrong with our ears, why we can have a hearing impairment, and also to learn the names of some of the people who you might see and some of the people who will help you. So here we have a picture of the ear. You might have seen this before, or it might be a new picture to you, but if we talk through it, so the bit over here is the bit that we're used to seeing and calling the ear, and this is actually called the pinna. So this is the bit that's on the outside of our heads, and as you can see, that's just a small part of our ear. The rest of it is going on all inside our heads. So this bit is called the ear canal. So this is the hole that leads us into the ear. And as we go through the ear canal, we come to the eardrum. Now the eardrum is a bit like a drum, really, that the sound travels in, and when it hits against the eardrum moves, and then it moves the little bones in the middle ear. So there are three tiny bones. These are the smallest bones of our body, and these are in the middle ear, and these help the sound travel from the eardrum all the way to the inner ear. And this structure that looks like a snail is the inner ear. It's also got another name called the cochlea, just in case you've heard of that as well. And that sound travels into the cochlea and then eventually up to this nerve. So this is called the auditory nerve, and that travels into our brains, and that helps us understand what the sound is. So that helps us know that if someone's knocking at the door, we need to go and answer it, or if someone's calling our name, we need to turn around. So as you can see, there's lots of different parts of the ear. So it's not just the bit that we see, there's lots going on inside our heads that make up our ear and allow us to hear sounds. So what can go wrong, and why do some people have a hearing impairment? So there are lots of different things that can go wrong. Sometimes there might be a problem with the outer bit of the ear that we see. It might just not have formed properly when we were growing inside tummies, and so that can make it difficult for the sound to travel through. We can also have trouble with this canal. Sometimes people have a really narrow, small canal, and that can mean that the sound isn't able to travel up effectively. There might be something going wrong with our eardrum. It might not be able to bounce like it should and let pass the sound through to the middle ear. Sometimes people have something wrong with the tiny bones that move the sound between the eardrum and the inner ear. And also, this snail has lots of different things going on inside. It's got little hairs inside, it's got liquid, and sometimes there's something wrong with one of those parts of that inner ear, and that would mean that the sound travels all the way down really nicely, but when it gets to this point it can't go any further, and that will mean that the sound doesn't get into our heads and into our brains, and so we can't hear. So if you have a hearing impairment, one of the parts of your ears isn't working properly. So if you have an inner ear problem, so the inner ear is the snail type structure right in the inside of your ear, called the cochlea, or it could be a problem with the nerve that travels from your cochlea into your brain. So if you have a problem in either of these areas, it's called a sensory-neural hearing loss, which is quite complicated, but that might be something that you see on reports, or you might, the audiologist might mention those words, so it's good to listen out and know what they mean. And if you have this type of hearing loss, it's a permanent hearing loss, so that it's not going to get better. You can wear hearing aids and you might have an implant or things that can help you hear better, but these problems aren't going to go away. It might be worth talking to your parents or your carers about what kind of hearing loss you have and finding out if you have a sensory-neural hearing loss. So it might be that your inner ear is working really well, but there's actually a problem with the middle or outer ear. And so the middle and outer ear are the pinna, which is the bit that we can see on the outside of our heads. So there might be a problem with that, or there might be a problem with the ear canal, so the tube, the tunnel that passes the sound to the eardrum. Could be a problem with the eardrum, or even the little bones that move the sound between the eardrum and the cochlea. And if you have a problem in any of these areas, it's called a conductive hearing loss. So there's a problem conducting the sound to the cochlea. So some of these problems in these areas can be permanent. So for example, if you have a problem with your outer ear or your ear canal, that might be something that's permanent, but they're normally temporary. So there's normally a problem that can be fixed or can be sorted. So sometimes people have something called glue ear. That's something that you might hear. And that's because there's lots of liquid that kind of gets in the way of moving the sound. And coughs and colds and things like that might make it harder to hear on those days. So yeah, it's good to ask your mums, your dads, anyone who goes to the audiologist with you, to find out if you do have a conductive loss, and maybe finding out why, what kind of conductive loss you have. Is it because you have glue ear, or is it because of something else? So it might be good to go and speak and ask and find out about that. So if you have a hearing impairment and something is wrong with your ear, then there's certain people that you might see that other people don't. The first one is the audiologist. So you might well have appointments that you have to go to regularly. Take time off school sometimes to go and see the audiologist and check your hearing. And they'll do things like looking in your ears, maybe doing hearing tests, asking how things are working for you, things, how your hearing's doing, if you're finding it easier or harder to hear. And you'll go to those regularly. So it's really good that you know they're coming up, and if you have any questions or anything you want to ask, that's a really good time to do it. You also might have a visit from a teacher of the deaf. So I'm a teacher of the deaf, I'm called Heidi, and I go and visit children in schools, and so does Sue. So Sue's another teacher of the deaf that might come and visit you. And for some children we come and see you quite regularly. Other children we might just come once a term to just come and check on how you're doing. And in that visit we might come and speak to your teacher, we might come and see you in class, we might have a check on your hearing aid. And it's not to check on you, it's just to check how you're hearing in school and to see if we can help you in any way. So if there's something you're worried about in school, or there's a time that you're really struggling to hear, or something's not working well with your radio aid that you're using, or your hearing aid, or your molds, it's a really good time to speak to us. And also if you haven't heard from us and we haven't come in a while, but you have a question, maybe ask your mums or dads or your teachers to get in touch with us, and we can come and visit you and see if you're okay and try and help that situation. We also have an audiology technician. Her name is Hayley, and if you're wearing hearing aids, she'll come and see you quite regularly to check your hearing aids are working okay. So she'll put them in a special machine, and that tells her if they're working, and also if she can do you new molds. So sometimes the molds for your hearing aids might get too small as you grow, or they might get old and not work properly, and she'll put some things in your ears to make new ones. And that's great because you don't have to miss any school. She can quickly do that for you in school and get things sorted out for you as quickly as possible. So if you do have any worries about any of those things, just make sure that you either ask your teacher or your mums or dads to get in touch with us. I hope you've learnt lots in this first session. So what I'd like you to do is try and find a pen and paper and just write down something that you've learnt in this session. So remember, we talked first of all about our ears, to see if you can remember maybe any of the names of the different parts of the ear. We talked about some things that might go wrong. So we talked about a sensory-neural loss and conductive loss and some of the reasons for those. And we talked about some of the people that you might visit, that might visit you, or you might go and visit. And maybe see if you can remember any of their names. I hope you found it useful, and we're going to be doing another session, and the next session is going to be on hearing devices. So that's hearing aids, implants, bone conductors. So if you found this useful, it might be really good to move on to the next lesson. See you soon.